A very sad man returns to a town he was happy in once a long time ago. I'm not sure why he's so sad because it's foggy all the time here, which is like ideal weather for pale Jameses. Battling through an unclear memory, James Sunderland confronts nightmare incarnations of his guilt as he chases down a specter of his late wife, like he's been stuck doing for the past 2 decades. Welcome in, y'all. I'm Mothy, Jimothy for long. Today, we're playing Silent Hill 2, the remake that came out in 2024. That's right, I'm covering a contemporary game for once. Don't worry, I'm okay, I think. Silent Hill 2 first came out for the PlayStation 2 just 2 weeks after 9/11, and 2.5 years after Silent Hill 1 for the PlayStation 1. And after 23 years and a cornucopia of other games that trended downward in popularity for the franchise, Polish studio Bloober team was entrusted to remake Silent Hill 2 for a whole new generation of fans on the PlayStation 5 and PC. This video should be great for people who have never touched a Silent Hill game and are curious about the story, as well as people who have played this game or the original and want to dive deeper on what actually happened in it. And to be clear, Silent Hill 2 is fully independent of Silent Hill 1 and presupposes no knowledge of it. This is just another story told in that universe. I'll be taking us on a full story playthrough, telling the story of James Sunderland and the other characters, guiding us to unravel the layers of symbolism and illusions to learn what really happens in Silent Hill, as well as some possible side theories. And I'm covering the game in my as-intended style, which takes on a slightly different meaning for each game, but the focus is always on appreciating the subtlety of game design. There isn't as much strategic depth to cover in this game, but I found a lot of elegance in the writing, especially in the odd memos and scrawlings throughout the game, so my focus will be on visiting areas in the correct order in a way that helps us best piece together what's happening. Not just to James and his friends, but to a whole cast of never-seen NPCs whose stories must be deciphered through the texts. Silent Hill by nature is highly personal, and what I take from it will not match what you take from it. And yet, I know that I personally would get kind of upset if I looked up what happened in the game and the answer was, lol, it's up to interpretation. So I'm going to do my best to acknowledge multiple theories where reasonable, but I will present my opinion in service of anyone who prefers a concrete explanation like I do. Much of the lore is not set in stone. Ambiguity is intentional in the magic of how Silent Hill works, as well as what the characters say and do. Even facts, like what decade we're in, are up for debate. We've also had 25 years of mainline games and spin-offs developed across continents, plus movies, novels, art books, tweets, and later tweets that contradict and subvert previous tweets, not to mention a language barrier from Japanese to English that all make it pretty hard to nail down the lore. Creature and art director of the original game, Masahiro Ito, is particularly talkative on Twitter, firing off tweets that, in my opinion, fill in a little too much of what was better left unsaid, much like J.K. Rowling spoils some of the magic of Harry Potter by giving fans more info than we needed. He's also only one member of a larger team, and I'm not confident that everyone else from Team Silent, the group who originally directed the first several Silent Hill games, would agree on all of his takes. This is all to say, I'm going to get details wrong. So would anyone, because there are literally multiple right answers for most questions in this game. But we're going to use Silent Hill 2 2024 as our source of truth for this video, and if some note from the original game or from outside media contradicts it, I've made my peace with that, and I hope you can as well. Aside from getting things wrong, I'm straight up going to leave many things out as well. For one, this game is new, so things are still getting discovered. And even if the community had discovered every last molecule of reference and Easter egg, there would be far too many to cram in one video. So please comment your favorite details that I missed, but know that for every 3 hints that I cover, there are 3 more that I wasn't personally aware of, 6 more I chose not to cover, and probably 10 more that the community at large hasn't even found. Whew, that's a record-long introduction for me on a game that deserves it. So to push the envelope, pun intended, last thing before we start, I'd be seriously grateful for a like or subscription if you enjoy the content. I'm just one guy, alone, working to share my passion for games with y'all, and pressing those buttons helps me out so much to get my videos in front of more eyeballs. Thank you for your consideration. Now let's play. We begin in a bathroom. A dark one. Hands are shaky but clean, and we check our face, almost as though we're surprised to be here. We've returned to Silent Hill to find our wife Mary, who is somehow sending us letters from beyond the grave. One thing becomes clear very soon, and accepting it now helps us frame the whole story. We are dealing with multiple realities. It's unclear whether the foggy, abandoned Silent Hill that we're entering replaces a real, functioning Silent Hill town, or if this place exists alongside. But James has parked at a Silent Hill that is foggy, abandoned, and abnormal because he was called, or lured here, by his long-dead wife. This no U-turn sign is symbolic and for game purposes serves to keep us in bounds, but it's hilarious from a traffic control perspective. Like, obviously you can't make a U-turn here. Grab a map out of our car, a toothpaste blue Roamer, license plate 000THZ. Our car is not the only one parked here. This van belongs to someone called Eddie. We'd only know that on a second playthrough, but it's reassuring to learn James was not the only person driving to Silent Hill recently. It looks like the road is blocked, so we're on foot now. It's a pretty trail down to Toluca Lake, still mostly maintained, but maybe not for the past season. We'll see James go down a lot in this game. It's a simple metaphor to keep in mind as we go deeper into James's memories and feelings. Once we reach a graveyard, meet a friendly NPC, Angela, unexpected in this unwelcoming place. Watch how James approaches her by touching her arm before saying hello. This is especially insensitive to Angela, who's been the target of unwanted male touch much of her life. I point this out because every time James meets another NPC, he has a way of triggering them that almost seems intentional, and I want to track that as we play. One theory I'm nursing is that Silent Hill draws people to it in batches, basically, handpicked to play a role in each other's stories, like assembling the cast for a play in order to learn from each other. And James's insensitivity is a way that makes him a vessel to test their character in their own Silent Hill experiences. But these two end their encounter on good terms. Angela is also here to find someone, her mother, as well as maybe her father and brother. It's unclear. She thought they were dead until the town gave her a sign otherwise, much like we got with Mary's letter. Very interestingly, James chose to tell Angela he's looking for someone special rather than give her name or say, my wife. Does he distrust Angela, or is he hiding the fact that he's married? The choice to hide this detail makes James come off a tiny bit more threatening to Angela, as well as hints very subtly at feelings of infidelity for James. Leave the graveyard and continue running the direction that Angela pointed us toward the town of Silent Hill. Once we reach town, find another map which calls the area South Vale. If you're like me, you said, I thought this was Silent Hill. What the hell is South Vale? When you got this map. I had to dig a bit into the layouts of the other games and mix in a little bit of fan theory, but basically Silent Hill is more of a municipality. Some might call it a town that encompasses more than one village, the way a rural area might have a town called Blackwater that contains a village of Blackwater, but also Old Blackwater, West Blackwater, another place called White Land, Johnsonville, some different name. South Vale would be one of these sub-villages of the larger Silent Hill town. South Vale is a pretty open area, but there's a hidden order that makes the most sense to visit, and we're going to do that. Begin in the flower shop, which is open from 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. What healthy hours. An employee's memo inside mentions a distracted male customer who ordered an unlucky mixed bouquet of red and white because he couldn't decide. So this might refer to James. Really, anytime a note mentions a he, him, we're meant to think maybe. More on that later. We've been following a trail of goo leading out of the flower shop and through the streets of East South Vale. James will never call it blood or otherwise identify the substance, but we'll see a lot of red goo and black goo in this game. The goo helpfully takes an obvious curve at the intersection to show us which way to walk, and ultimately leads into a townhouse where we collect a buzzing, battery-powered radio before getting attacked by a stumbling, straitjacketed humanoid monster. James improvises a weapon out of a nailed plank, which reminds me of Mo chasing Kang and Kodos out of Springfield. This radio buzzes wildly when enemies are nearby, which may be a meaningful connection to Mary, since the only other thing we hear through it all game is this scrambled message from Mary. It's all broken up, but we get a lot of clear Jameses. Just when James is doubting what he's gotten himself into, this breadcrumb from Mary, or the town, triples down his resolve to continue. Find a corpse on Martin Street with a matchbook from Neely's Bar. Gunk keeps his identity obscure, but we can see he wore similar jacket, jeans, and boots as us. We'll find a lot of these James-looking corpses, or jorpses. Way too many to be a coincidence, so let's cover two main explanations for how Silent Hill operates. What its deal is. I think introducing the theories early on loses some of the buildup of it slowly dawning on us, but in exchange, we can play the game through those lenses and make more sense of what's going on. Theory 1, James may have been here before. Many times. It's possible he's caught in a loop, Groundhog Daying it through Silent Hill, attempting to find Mary and resolve his trauma, achieving varying success, but always failing. Yet, he seems to learn things each time, like a roguelike video game, retaining slightly more info each loop, and sometimes even dropping helpful notes and items when he dies. Starting the game in the bathroom mirror, touching our cheek to see that we're alive, that could be how all the runs begin moments before, and these corpses could be actual previous Jameses. Theory 2, there's no loop, but then we must put more stock into hallucinations and manifestations. James would be here for the first and only time searching for Mary. Notes that are addressed to us, or that seem to be about us, are either imagined by James, or essentially generated by the town to shape James's journey. The corpses might be real, but of other people, and James is merely seeing them like himself. Either theory is super valid, so is a hybrid. Truly believe what you like, and remember that by design, there is not a canon explanation. But in the context of this remake, my chips are on loop theory. Loop theory was always an option hinted at in the original game, but I understand it's pushed a little harder in this remake. Plus, in a meta sense, the nature of the game being remade at all ties into loop theory in a cool way. So I'm mostly going to look at events through that lens, and together we can check what supports that and what contradicts it. Sound okay? With South Vale wide open, and no better place to start, let's go to Neely's bar on the advice of that matchbook from that first Jorps. There's a broken jukebox here that is essentially just a lock that needs 3 keys to fix. Every time we enter a new area, Silent Hill 2 puts a puzzle box front and center like this so we know what we're looking for as we explore the area. It's a player-friendly design choice that helps explain why our character would be collecting random junk, unlike some games where you're picking up chess pieces like a psychopath until you get lucky and find a chess puzzle that just so happens to be missing the pieces you found, or whatever. And a memo on the bar tells us where to start hunting for these pieces. There was an odd character in South Vale, some man, a janitor, who was desperate to leave Silent Hill with his girlfriend. He smashed this jukebox, then realized he made a mistake and tried to repair it. We're directed to Groovy Music for the vinyl record he broke, and the man's apartment at Saul Street, number 9, for a missing button. Let's begin at Groovy Music. I did stop in the American Cafe on the way, since there's a memo here that adds color. The waitress warned him, maybe James, not to come in, but he acted like he didn't remember. Maybe because she was warning a different version of him. When she looks at him, it's like staring at a mask, like there's something underneath, waiting to get out. I can think of someone with a masky face who doesn't show a lot of emotion. With our nailed plank, Silent Hill 2 has become a window smashing simulator. If you want to be a real gamer about it, you can amass way more loot than you'll need the whole game if you open every drawer and check every car. Something like half the cars will have an item, which is half the time healing and half the time bullets. I can't turn off that reflex in me, but you really don't need to play with your head in the cabinets to succeed at Silent Hill 2. Also, wait, bullets? Silent Hill has begun trickling us ammo long before we'll find a gun, which in a way is its own source of anxiety. Like, crap, did I miss the gun? Also, I was not gonna punish y'all by ruining the footage like this, but collecting items in this game is much nicer when you can see them glow from 30 yards away in high contrast mode. This kind of ruins the game because you can't turn it on for just items, meaning you're also going to spot enemies who are meant to surprise you, and James is going to look like a ghost covered in plaster, but high contrast mode is very helpful on a second playthrough if you're trying to gather the collectibles. Okay, reach Groovy Music. On the counter, another note about our janitor. Says he came in upset trying to fix the record, but only brought half. Luckily, we brought the other half, and there's glue in the back room. Why did this janitor break the jukebox and this record? Well, the song he broke helps James remember about his and Mary's special place. So was the janitor working against James to make his journey harder? Or did he break it to draw attention to it, to help James? Assuming intent either way gets kind of messy, because the janitor comes from the functioning real-world version of Silent Hill, and how would he know who James is to either assist or impede us? I tried researching this janitor, even asking on Reddit, but we're trailblazing here. My best theory about the janitor is a little hand-wavy. Maybe in the real Silent Hill, there was a heartbroken janitor who smashed up the song that reminds him of his beloved. Then the foggy Silent Hill world sensed these emotions and used their story to draw James to the jukebox as part of his own narrative. Okay, our next destination is the janitor's apartment down on Saul Street, but check out Katz Street on our way south. The Woodside apartments are currently locked, but a flyer at the door for the Texan Cafe reads, "We gotta leave." This was actually left by our same janitor friend for his girlfriend who lives here, and it's a hint to go check out the Texan Cafe. At the west end of Katz Street, by the barrier, is a memo in neat cursive, certainly not James's handwriting, talking about the monsters we've been seeing. Well, the monsters they've been seeing. What are they? They don't stink, but it feels like they do. This is our first indication that the manifestations of Silent Hill are different for each person. James's high-heeled, straight-jacketed demi-humans don't look like they would stink. Perhaps this author was perceiving them as foul slime monsters instead. And who knows what Angela sees. And let's touch on strange photos. They're a collectible added in the remake with a cool message if you find all or most of them. I won't spoil that until the end, but they do support loop theory. Alright, we've made it to Saul Street's apartment block, and we're looking for the janitor's unit. A memo from Unit 5, which sits below, complains of a leak coming from above. So we climb to the leaking apartment, ironically the janitor's. James can try to open one door, which is chained from the other side and full of foul black goo that stains his hand. Then in the bathroom, James uses his other clean hand to reach into a hole in the wall for the missing jukebox key. That's now 2 keys collected for our 3-part lock. Then, last time I'll hyper-focus on this janitor guy, his diary is here, stained with the same black goo. This game often has a little more text legible if you look closely at the actual asset than what shows up if you use the read feature, by the way. He mentions Woodside and a woman who washes away all of his brain fog. It's this place. I can't fight it. Gotta get my head straight. Quick stop at Texan, then we're going. So that flyer from earlier and this diary both point us to the Texan Cafe, hinting at the 3rd component we need for the jukebox puzzle. Collect several more memos on Saul Street first, though. Further west, there's a Jorps with a map showing a route from Katz Street north to Nathan Ave that cuts through the Woodside apartments, a path we will be taking soon. A second memo nearby is perhaps the biggest reveal in this half of the game. I'll write down what I've learned so far. Maybe it'll help you somehow. And on the back, if you're reading this, I'm probably dead. This is the strongest evidence for loop theory in the game, and it also teaches us that James is not stupid. This makes it clear that Jameses of the past have pieced together that they're not the first and won't be the last, and they're intentionally leaving help so that a future James might succeed on his quest. Along that theme, a 3rd note hints at how to handle enemies, and a 4th suggests to hit them a few times once they're down to make sure you got them. And a short walk over to Sanders Street by a truck yields another Jorps with a cursed note. Sooner or later, you will see. On the back, smeared in quick blood art as he died, a red figure with a pointy head. Well, that's kind of spooky. Get to the Texan Cafe. There's no evidence of the janitor or his lady friend here, except that the cash register contains a token for the Neely's Bar jukebox that he likely remembered to stash before quitting town. With that last piece, we can now fix the jukebox back at Neely's Bar and play song C2. A tinge of sadness sweeps James, then recognition. This song defogs a small part of his mind. Our special place with Mary. It might be Rosewater Park on Toluca Lake. A note from the staff in the back room of Neely's afterwards follows up the one from the front. He came back. No rage this time, only sadness, and mentioned getting out of town with someone. For some reason, they call out his car here as a greenish-blue one, license plate ending in 06. In the alleyways behind Neely's Bar, we find that car. It's definitely not James's car. It's not a roamer, and the plates don't match. It looks like our friend never did make it out of town, though. Next to the car is a jacket that I've seen a lot of people call James's jacket, but that just doesn't make sense given the pretty extensive understanding we have of Silent Hill's least stable custodian. The convenience of this whole jukebox puzzle leading James to a key for the building he needs to go through is, to me, an argument against loop theory. It demonstrates the power of Silent Hill to create scenarios and obstacles that shepherd us along the path it wants us to take. No mention of past Jameses. In a way, believing that is attributing our fate to a higher power rather than self-determination by man. Grabbing that key from the jacket kicked up a nasty wind, and the streets filled up with wandering enemies. We're meant to make haste to the Woodside apartments for shelter. This section is the game's attempt to teach us that we don't need to fight. Killing enemies in this game has little benefit and is generally negative expected value unless they guard a room you want to search. Especially in a wide open area like this, we're meant to run by. I think the degree to which the player picks fights here is sort of the point, and it's in line with James's conflict. From the mask comment and other things we'll learn later, most characters we meet have violence within them, and it's up to the player how much they want to let that side of James show. So, because there's no reason to fight them, skip most of the enemies and arrive at Woodside Apartments, the second level of Silent Hill 2. They give us a map right away. Circled on the upper left already is Rosewater Park, so our objective is clear from the start. They also present this area's puzzle box immediately, a big cabinet that needs 3 coins. Let's find them. A memo in the stairwell hints at the presence of a gun in apartment 217, so that's a good short-term goal. But before that, we're funneled into a room glowing with a flashlight that introduces our second enemy type, mannequins, and also reminds us about light sensitivity in enemies. Now, that flashlight is on a mannequin wearing Mary's clothing. I don't really have thoughts on that, except insofar as James might identify with the janitor. We know his girlfriend lived at Woodside, so perhaps this is her apartment, and James sees a version of her clothes that makes sense to him. Continue through the building until we meet our second NPC as we stretch to reach a key through some bars. A little blonde devil kicks away the key and stomps her hand before running away.
Hey, wait!
Nothing stops us from walking around to the other side to grab the key after this, though. The kid is long gone, except for traces of her art, surprisingly unbothered by the horrors of Silent Hill.
Huh. Quite the artist.
Well, that key got us into the second floor hallway where, yikes, lurking at the end of the hall, fortunately behind bars, is a tall figure with a red pointy head, like the one the Sanders Street note claimed, quote, "Sooner or later, you will see." I guess suddenly I see. This is what I want to be. This figure, nay Pyramid Head, will haunt and hunt James throughout his journey, but for now, he's just observing. Let's try to ignore that, if we can, and visit room 217, where indeed we find the telegraphed handgun and several boxes of ammo to get us going. Apparently, its placement in a shopping cart is supposed to satirize American gun control or lack thereof. Then, on our way back out of this dead end, we hear a loud cry, and upon re-entering room 213, there's a body slumped dead in front of a glowing television. Its head is covered, but by the jeans and boots, this may be another Jorps. What's the cause of death? A huge smear of blood looks like the chair was pushed up to the TV, peri-mortem. I think Pyramid Head might have just slain this James. Remember this room number 213. We'll see a similar scene in a similar room much later, so this is likely a telegraph. Apartment 208 has a memo written in neat cursive that heavily supports loop theory. You must think I'm cruel, but this prison is of your own making. The choice was yours. I watched you make it. This time's not going to be any different, and I'll be here watching. What's interesting is the I here, the writer. This implies an intelligence. One person who has mastery over, or at least comfort with, the workings of Silent Hill, who's able to sit back and watch James make mistakes over again. It colors this whole experience. Silent Hill, rather than a force of nature, a calculated system, might behave with intelligence, more personal and targeted. Well, joke's on them. Their puzzle gets us the first coin, and the others follow after not too long. With access to the third floor, find our first memo that hints at a place called the Otherworld. Yeah, one creepy, foggy Silent Hill isn't enough. There's a sub-dimension just below the surface of this world. We'll see it soon enough. This is excellent foreshadowing. Try to remember this writer. The handwriting and content may match a note we find later in the hospital, and it's cool to believe this writer has a bit of a storyline where they become institutionalized. Side note, you'll see me play a lot of this game in a wounded state with a red border. I'm sorry that makes some of the footage weird, but it's a relevant point I mean to make for my value-oriented gamers out there. Syringes heal James fully, so in order to not throw away healing value, I try to let James get close to death during these safer parts of the game before healing him fully with a syringe. Also, there are points in the game that automatically restore James's health for free, so deferring heals can cheese some value. I played my whole first playthrough like this because I'm me, and it turns out that gets you one of the saddest endings because it shows a lack of self-preservation for James, which is exactly the opposite of what I was going for, but whatever. There's a second note about the Otherworld from that same person. This one connects the concept of the Otherworld to people. It is in me. There's someone inside me. This is jumping the gun a little bit, but I believe the Otherworld and Pyramid Head are somewhat synonymous. Where one is found, the other is near. And this note to me implies that everyone is within reach of their own Pyramid Head if they allow him through, if they bear enough guilt to weaken the barrier. Down on the first floor, follow the sounds of sickness to an apartment where we're shocked to find a dead body hanging out of a fridge. One that actually doesn't match James for once. Maybe it would if we came here alone, but when characters are physically close to each other, their visions of Silent Hill can bleed into each other. This body is likely of somebody shot by the third character we're about to meet, Eddie. Observe his initial reaction when we meet him. He's behaving like we're the police come to arrest him, not helped by us shining our flashlight in his face. James is, again, unwittingly triggering trauma responses in those he meets.
Oh, you mean the man back there? In the kitchen?
I didn't do it. I swear I didn't kill him.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm not saying that you did.
Eddie was bullied his whole life into adulthood, and he's here because he finally reacted, shot his bully, and fled from the cops straight to Silent Hill, which seems a little unfair. Couldn't the town have sucked in his bully instead? Moving on, out the window we see a coin. A rare coin, a Ratlin coin. Coin on the pram and the pool on the deck in the courtyard in the Valeo. You can kill the enemies or just dance through them. Then zip to the other courtyard where we dislodged the third coin via juice momentum, and we can solve the area's big puzzle box with our 3 coins. But winning does not get us to safety. Our prize is an up-close encounter with Pyramid Head. Hiding in the closet, he knows we're here, but our journey has only just begun. Killing us before we've learned anything about ourselves would serve no purpose, so he backs down and shows us where to go. With a loud swallow, James is determined to go on. In one of the coolest scenes of all time, James steps across the barrier from the foggy world to the Otherworld, while still crossing the physical gap from the Woodside Apartments to the Blue Creek building. Because the Otherworld still occupies physical space, it's just a rotten reflection of the real world in that space. Rust, bugs, and mold are common, and nothing we see here should be taken too literally. Gameplay-wise, these sections have fewer memos and less lore. The focus is more on tense exploration and combat. Quick check-in on the plot that we've covered so far. We know that James is looking for Mary, and we've met a few characters. But James's journey is not purely physical. He carries trauma, depression, and most importantly, guilt. For what, we can only guess this early, and these journeys to the Otherworld are, from a storytelling perspective, a metaphor for James peeling away his mental protections to confront buried truths. Only by recovering his memory and learning from his past will James have any chance to grow or to escape, and that's going to take some pain. This level still gives us a main 3-piece puzzle box to work on. This time it's a clock that needs its 3 hands returned. This whole game works on dream logic, which is a big part of why I love it. No sane person would believe there's a clock hand in this backed up toilet, but it's the kind of things James just knows, like you'd know in a dream. Silent Hill 2 is a scary game, with top-notch sound design being a big reason for that. The scare that personally gets me the worst happens when we enter room 209. This may not come across as well in a video, but wearing headphones, this sudden loud whispering that's mixed to sound like it's coming from around the player rather than from the game is terrifying. It happens a few times in the game. It never quite forms real words, and it's truly maddening. Proceed down to room 109 and meet a familiar face. Poor Angela has been overwhelmed in her search for her mother and lies here, playing with a knife and likely contemplating self-harm. Neither of us have found who we're looking for, but James, sharing his determination, seems to give Angela some energy to get up and continue her own search. But before she can leave with that knife in hand, James asks to hold it for her out of concern. Regarding my theory that Silent Hill chooses its victims in batches, we can see here how James and Angela might be better off having known each other. James's role in her story may be to test her bravery around strange men, and Angela's role in his gives him a chance to demonstrate patience and compassion. Whether the town wanted them to pass these tests and grow versus hurt each other, we can't know. A small note here on level design. The developers deserve a lot of credit for intentionally minimizing backtracking. Every time we head down some long path to reach some item, we get popped right back out where we need to be thanks to a loop back, be it through a one-sided door, lowering a staircase, or jumping down a hole. I doubt they did this just to be kind to the player. It's more likely they realized that retreading your path would give you a chance to feel safe and familiar, so they preferred to always have us walking into the unknown. It's an elegant design that goes well in a horror game. This one room we reach is full of moths, which I pause to appreciate because it is my channel branding after all. Then, after we receive our third hand, the second hand, from a wall hole, we hear a loud metal scraping. The path back to the clock has some large gashes on the walls and the floor that definitely weren't there before. They're even in the clock room itself, which had felt like our little oasis in the dark. These slashes set up the dread for our first boss fight against Pyramid Head himself, down on the first floor, dragging his massive sword behind him like King Vendrick. If you've been rationing ammo like a responsible gamer, this is a good time to spend it while we talk about why this fight is happening. In short, I would argue that James is not sure he wants to find Mary. He has a lot of pain associated with her memory. And on top of that, he knows she died, so he's combating his trust of reality here too. The reason for this fight happening now is because we're just about to reach Rosewater Park, the special place James remembered when he fixed the Neely's jukebox. Pyramid Head is an obstacle that forces us to prove our determination to reach her, popping up just when the truth is so close. James faces the fight with poise and bravery, looking neither afraid nor angry, but curious when we finally drive Pyramid Head away. Winning that fight put us back in the foggy Silent Hill world. On the way to the park, meet the little girl who kicked our hand, sitting and contemplating a letter.
Hey, it was you, wasn't it? You're the one who stepped on my hand.
Maybe I did.
What's a little girl like you doing here anyway?
I don't know. What's a big dum-dum like you doing here anyway?
Hey, that's not very nice. Didn't your parents teach you any manners? What you got there?
None of your business.
She's calmer this time and begins to engage us, until James mentions her parents, when she changes demeanor and runs away. Because he didn't know she's an orphan, James has again blundered into hurting somebody with his actions. But we don't have time to chase her, we're almost to the park. Reach Rosewater Park, head to the gazebo over the lake to meet Mary, or no.
Mary? No. You're not.
Do I look like your girlfriend?
No, my late wife. I can't believe it. Your face, your voice, you could be...
My name is Maria. I don't look like a ghost, do I? See? Warm.
Sorry, I got confused.
Hey. Where are you going?
I need to find Mary.
Didn't you say she died?
Oh. Yeah. 3 years ago. It's just... I got a letter from her.
A letter?
I know how it sounds. I don't...
Hey. It's okay. So, what did the letter say?
She said she was waiting for me. In our special place.
And that's here? Anyway, I haven't seen her. Is this your only special place?
I don't know anymore. There was something I can't quite.
Hey.
So Maria looks and sounds exactly like our late wife.
Might know.
How? In the same way that Silent Hill manifests monsters for James, has it manifested Maria? Except she's very much a person, which I think the writing hammers home by having her point out that she's warm and real. I believe Silent Hill capable of spawning creatures and homunculi, but a whole-ass adult woman with a backstory, hopes, and dreams? Maybe, in the way corpses might be other corpses James just sees as him, Maria could be her own person that James is only perceiving like Mary in order to fit a mold. Or, and this is crazy, maybe James's relationship to Silent Hill was not determined later in life, but fated from birth, and so were Mary and Maria both fated to end up here too, playing a part in one huge predestined play. As with most things in this game, it's intentionally left for the player to decide how they feel about Maria. Personally, calling her just a test for James, in the same way Pyramid Head or the monsters are, wipes away her personality, her curiosity, and her warmth. She's everything James was missing during his wife's illness. Kind, patient, pretty,
Is it
It's my take that Maria is a real person with her own unfortunate reasons to be caught in Silent Hill. The town conveniently cast her to play in James's story to test his faithfulness to his wife. And yet, Maria is clearly fond of James, and to abandon the ghost of Mary for the living, breathing Maria feels like it might save 2 lives, not 1. Some other quick hits from this scene. If this isn't their special place, James has no idea what that might be.
So it's okay.
He feels there may be another place as he gazes out over the lake, but he can't grasp it yet. He actually tries to rebuff Maria by only asking her for directions, but she convinces him to travel together. Our boy gets some credit for trying. And Maria does perceive the same monsters that James does in this town. This is one of the best pieces of evidence that Maria is just a manifestation of James's desires, since they share a perspective. And yet, maybe there's nothing strange about sharing a perspective if they're soulmates? Maria's leading us to the Moonlight Grove, not far away, but real gamers will take a long walk down Nathan Avenue right now. Playing this way and scouring the area gives us extra time to get to know Maria, so in a weird way, being curious and meticulous makes Maria become a better match for James.
Wrong way.
She's bemused when we smash glass, she asks questions about Mary, she's playful, and she expresses gratitude when we save her from monsters. All in all, pleasant to have around. There's a Jorps on the very west end of Nathan Ave with a note in different handwriting than we've seen before. I can leave by not leaving. I can only leave by not leaving. This handwriting is a match for the barrier note that mentioned the lack of smell on monsters, which had also mentioned going through. Whoever left these 2 notes is consistent about trying to escape. Is it possible the author is Maria and her only way out was to wait for James?
They're coming.
Wishful thinking on my part, but possible. Visit Octanus Fuels now for a jack lever and a chance to be a real hero for Maria against an enemy onslaught. We can use that jack lever to open up a garage back east. I point this out not because it's got some good loot inside, but for the article that previews the coming psychiatric hospital level and references an incident from 2 years ago that we'll want to keep in mind. Finally into the motel that Maria wants us to visit. I didn't want to creep out Maria, so I avoided saving my game in her presence. I think canonically James zones out and gets weird when you use a red square to save your game. A note in the office points us to room 107, which points us back to the office. Maria is drawn to a certain outfit she feels she would look good in, which is actually her outfit from the original Silent Hill 2. It's probably just an Easter egg. Or could this be a hint from Bloober that Maria may also be experiencing loops through Silent Hill like James is, and sensing this outfit from a previous run? Continue now past the motel. James loots a steel pipe to significantly increase his Maria protecting capabilities, and after a short run, we're at Maria's place of work, the Heaven's Knight Gentlemen's Club. Red doors have bode ill in the past, but the butterfly decal matching Maria's tattoo marks this one safe. Inside, Maria just wants to tease and have a moment of levity in this nightmare. James is resolute at first, shooting her down, but he does relent somewhat to join her at the bar for a moment and at least admit that Silent Hill is stressing him out.
Can we stay? Just for a little while. Catch our breath before we head back out there.
I don't have time to take a break. Mary could be out there, waiting for me.
I know. It's just... this place, this whole thing, it's like a nightmare. I just wanted to get away from it, even for a second. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. Sorry, I didn't mean to. I guess this place is getting to me, too. Am I crazy? You know, for thinking she could be here.
Crazy is one word for it, I guess. I can think of another.
What's that?
Hopeful.
Maria really is good for James. She pours us some whiskey and shoots hers. James doesn't shoot his in the cutscene, so I do it for him afterward. Once we're back outside, it's just a few steps to where Maria thought might have been James and Mary's special place. It's a statue of a woman from a tragic tale of romance, and a message of never losing hope, which seems like a spot-on guess from Maria, but James rudely gives the most impatient, I can't believe this crap headshake.
She's not here.
What?
She's not here.
Just then,
okay.
a scream of a girl from inside a movie theater with
me about
apparently
this.
paper-thin walls
Still-
gives us a reason to move on. As we approach that movie theater, James suggests that Maria stays outside.
Maybe you better wait here.
Okay. Not much of a movie fan anyway.
James double takes at that line. I don't think he cares for movies much these days either. Inside the theater is the stinky little girl who seems to know Mary, plus our pal Eddie we last saw puking by a corpse he claimed not to have killed. They're watching a movie together, and Eddie actually has patience for her insults, which is weird because we'll later see him fly off the handle for similar. He has barricaded the door against monsters, whatever version he's seeing, but the girl actually doesn't see monsters, so she calls him weird for that. That's a thing we sort of infer by how unbothered she is moving around the town and leaving her drawings up. And watching these two interact without James present reinforces my feeling that all 5 of these characters, James, Maria, Eddie, Girl, and Angela, were assembled by the town on purpose due to how they will test and learn from each other. The girl bails when we walk in, but James speaks to Eddie, who finally reveals her name, Laura. We can see that Eddie's breath here is frosty, like it was in our last encounter, as if his version of Silent Hill is a very cold place, like a freezer. And this is further implied by the fact that he's eating a big tub of ice cream.
The little girl?
Chase Laura through a few rooms, and then back outside the front of the theater, where we reunite with Maria and follow Laura to Brookhaven Hospital, a mental asylum. Immediately on the inside, the game teases a shotgun with its empty cabinet and our first box of shells. As the largest level in this game by a fair margin, the hospital is a little more freeform, but there's still carefully told environmental storytelling if we proceed with intention. Laura runs up to the 3rd floor, but locks doors behind her, and we're stuck finding a different path. The plot for the hospital begins with a note on the wall of the nurses' station. There are 3 crucial patients here, ones the director has been unable to cure and is maniacally attempting to fix. I'll do what I can to tell the story of each of these 3 patients and the mad hospital director who hurts them in his fixation on healing. The basement is where we go first, just to power on an elevator. Once we take that elevator up to floor 2, Maria suddenly feels unwell and lies down to rest in patient room C5. The poor woman might be showing signs of illness, a scary reminder for James of his Mary, who spent many sick days in the hospital.
I'm sorry.
That's fine. What's going on? Are you hurt?
It's nothing. Probably just a hangover. I wanted to ask you. What if you can't find Mary? What will you do?
I haven't really thought about that.
James hasn't even thought about the possibility of not finding Mary.
Get
Or
back soon,
that's what he
okay?
professes. Speak to Maria a few more times if you wish, then we're out to face the dark, dangerous hospital alone, still looking for Laura. The game introduces the final enemy type here, only about 40% of the way through the game. Nurses, with their faces wrapped, carrying steel pipes of their own, or sometimes daggers. There's plenty of symbolism to wonder on, but what's important is just that they're hot. These are some fine nurses, violence and face wrappings aside. The lack of intimacy James experienced while his wife was ill, as well as in the time since her passing, has him perceiving these nurses with an extra invested gaze and resolving that frustration with more violence. The only clue we have on where to start looking is that the director was working on those 3 patients, so let's head to his office. We had to look a little harder this time, but our main puzzle box reveals itself now, still pretty early. This closed fist that wants wristbands from each of those 3 patients to unclench. Those patients each have a summary here that includes an actual ICD-9 diagnosis code if you want to look them up. First, patient 130 was diagnosed with paranoid-type schizophrenia. They have intense anxiety, paranoia, and hallucinations, and they were kept in room L1 for close monitoring. The next patient, 90, has depressive-type psychosis. They refuse food, water, and cleaning themselves. The room is D1, but we're told to look in the treatment room where they were being bathed. And last, patient 50 has explosive personality disorder, featuring violent aggressive outbursts as well as hallucinations. Water used to help them relax. They were improving with time spent in the pool, but the treatments suddenly stopped working. I wonder why. Their room is C1. That's nearby, so let's start there. Indeed, art of a sailboat on calm water makes sense to find in their room, but behind it, an eyeball. And this is important, there's a note about an incident. Patient 50 was lying in water, then, quote, felt him stare very close. I had to get away, but he followed. He kept staring, so I made him stop. Can we go back to the pool? Continue exploring the second floor. The women's locker room just casually has the shotgun exposed for James to grab, and a teddy bear conceals a bent needle for later. The nearby nurse's lounge gives us the key to L1, where patient 130 was. Inside L1, a nurse's note reveals a little about the patient. They are a girl, nonverbal, who only sits there crying. Now look around the room. 130 built a blanket fort in the corner with paper for art. And it looks like she was adventurous too. Through the attached utility room, a hole in the wall takes us to the first floor medical records room, where 130 has left a creepy note. Why won't they help me? Why do they keep me in here with him? A second patient referencing the disturbing presence of some him. What him was she afraid of being kept with? The director? Pyramid Head? Another patient? James somehow? She built another fort in the corner of this room, which is where we collect her bracelet. That's one down. We've got to return upstairs to hunt other bracelets, and doing so, pass right by room C5, so let's check in on Maria.
I'll be okay. Just need a bit more rest.
Silent Hill 2 has 8 endings. Only 3 are available in your first playthrough. Which one you get is not based on a single choice, but on a hidden score kept of your actions throughout the game. Just know that we've been racking up invisible Maria points by being nice to her.
Thanks for
Take the back staircase now to floor 3, where we get a glimpse of Laura, but she's locked behind an employees only door. Then, patient 90's room, D1, is locked, but we can find a nurse's note about them. They avoid eye contact, shy from touch, refuse food, so they're force-fed with an NG tube, and they're harming themselves. On the 4th day of treatment, the unfinished statement, "Something is very wrong," sends a chill down my spine. Something very suddenly made this nurse stop taking notes. This patient's bracelet will take some legwork to get. The combo is scratched on X-rays, and of course one is missing, but we do collect a key that opens up the rest of the first floor. Nurses have spread down here, and they're suddenly common. Normal enemies won't get tougher than these nurses, so they're a good sink for pistol ammo if you've been hoarding it. We have a better gun for bosses. And if you haven't figured it out by now, the game gives some easy opportunities to discover that back attacks are instant takedowns. Remember way back to that garage by Jack's Inn, where an article referenced an incident 2 years ago in the hospital? We get more clarity on that from a note in the doctor's lounge that mentions it and compares it to another, more recent incident. It sounds like a patient here was involuntarily committed at first, seemed to respond well to treatment, and gave the staff no reason for concern. Until one night, he stole a guard's keys and, I would assume, hanged or cut himself by the phrasing of, "when they found him." They must have also had an escapee harm themselves or another 2 years in the past. Look, a 5-inch floppy disk. Jump scare. We have pool access now to follow up on patient 50, the water enjoyer. Through the garden and pool to the locker room for some tubing that we stick that bent needle on, and for the only time all game, we use a tool to fish something out of a creepy hole rather than our own hand. There's also a note about 50 here that doesn't add much we don't already know. Use the key from that hole to drain the pool, where we find an eye, much like the one on the wall in room C1. I'm not sure eyes were a great choice of motif for your pool, Brookhaven. They explain why this patient felt they were being watched. Smash this one to collect patient 50's bracelet. 2 down. To the kitchen now to work on that X-ray for patient 90. There's a note taped to the wall that mentions something deep inside the walls, breaking them down and rooting it out. This writing sounds awful familiar. Could this same writer have left the strange and sinister notes from Woodside Apartments? The ones that mention a pulsing under the surface and someone being inside that seem to reference the Otherworld? You could convince me the handwritings match. The capital outs match, including the same hook on the U's. What gives me pause is this capital R looks like they lift the pen, but the other notes write their R's in one stroke. And the new note has a stem on its M's, but the old ones don't. Unless that's a capital M, since they do intersperse cases within some words, like in normal and something. So maybe it's a match, meaning there's a patient or staff here who rents apartment 312 at Woodside. Maybe. Grab some mold remover and head up to the treatment room on floor 2 via the nurse's station that we can now unlock. We learn why patient 90 refused to eat or bathe. They perceived the food as rot and maggots, clean bathwater as pee and poop. They're trapped in the piss universe. Perhaps, in truth, this patient's reality is bleeding into the Otherworld, seen only by them. And this patient, like the other two, mentions a sinister him who is omnipresent. It's finally clear to us what these three uncurable patients have in common. They're all haunted by some unknown male visitor. It would be negligent of the director, who's so obsessed with curing them, not to notice they all have a problem with the same man. Unless it's the director himself who abuses these patients, or some other man he trusts. I think all these bits of lore throughout the hospital may be pointing toward the director, one man abusing the very population he's supposed to help. That, or they're all witnessing Pyramid Head. Well, the tub held the final x-ray. We got a demold first, then use that to learn the combo, open patient 90's room, and grab the final bracelet. There's a nasty reveal about the patient though. It looks as though 90 was using a broken piece of glass to cut away strips of their own flesh in an attempt to remove the filth they perceived. That nurse's log that mentions something very wrong happening, is it possible that this patient actually summoned the Otherworld over to the normal world with their actions and beliefs? There is evidence that it's easier to see the Otherworld or Pyramid Head for people not in a stable mental condition. Well, stick those 3 bracelets in the director's office and open his safe to find a note from the director that addresses someone in second person. He's been unable to cure his patients, but maybe you can. It sounds like the director is deferring treatment of his hopeless patients to another person, and he wouldn't be writing a nice letter if he meant Pyramid Head. Maybe the he that each patient feared was not the director, but a chaplain, a cultist that the director brought in to consult, or maybe one of his doctors who favors invasive treatments. At any rate, we've gained rooftop access for collecting the bracelets. Check on Maria on the way up to find her gone with no comment from James. He's probably relieved. The hospital rooftop in the dark pouring rain is the most desolate, scary scene in the whole game for me. The small area, surrounded in blackness, is at once cozy and spooky. Open the only doors up here for a diary page from the final days of patient 50. The poor man felt no peace and felt trapped here without a cure. This page is placed here as an allegory for James, because when we try to exit, this amazingly did not place us in the Otherworld, but we know because we saw Pyramid Head that it's nearby. In the meantime, don't forget why we ever came here. Laura. We catch up with her and have our first real character development between these two.
Laura?
How do you know my name?
Eddie told me.
That big, fat blabbermouth.
Laura, why do you keep running away from me? And how do you know about Mary?
I just do. What's the big deal?
Why can't you just tell me?
You gonna yell at me if I don't?
No. I won't. Please, just... I need to know.
Mary's my friend. We met at the hospital last year.
Stop lying. Laura, I'm sorry.
Fine, don't believe me. See if I care.
Hey!
So we learn Laura met Mary at the hospital last year, which startles James, which angers Laura. Last year? But Mary's been dead for 3. Unfortunately, the wibbly-wobbly nature of time in Silent Hill is causing damaging misunderstandings between these two. Laura tricks James into a dark room and locks him there for petty revenge, but because she doesn't see the monsters, she doesn't realize she just locked us in with our second boss.
Please open the door. There's something in here.
Sure there is. A big lying fart face.
This is Flesh Lip, and it's trapped in a cage designed to look like a hospital bed, namely Mary's hospital bed. There's other symbolism to pick apart, but I'll specifically point out that as the cage breaks apart during the fight, it's meant to recall a spider, which the developers hinted is a new theme they wanted to introduce to the remake. It's an easy metaphor to apply. Silent Hill can trap a person much like a spider's web. Also, for my gamers out there, take care to gather the items in this arena during the boss fight because we'll lose that chance as soon as we win. Then, just when you think you've earned a rest for defeating the Flesh Lip, a second one appears and spirits us away to the Otherworld Hospital to confront even more traumas. Right away, we run into a new patient record, one who was diagnosed with unspecified psychosis. and quite a creepy recommendation for treatment. The puzzle box for this level is the most literal one we'll see. 3 chains lead off it in 3 directions, pointing us to the 2 codes and a single key we need to open it. These 3 chains likely symbolize the same familiar patients, and there are more clues about them here. One patient note in the observation room, probably corresponding to our pool boy, patient 50, mentions the lurking man again, who says he'll drag me there. Well, Pyramid Head is nonverbal, so this does again implicate either the director or somebody the director knows. There's a new electroconvulsive therapy room, which is probably where he was threatening to drag the patient. Apparently, patient 50 was found here by a nurse hooked up to the machine and getting shocked, and he couldn't have done that himself. And a director's note reads, "I won't rest until they are solved." So the content here does lead me back to wondering if the director himself went mad, running unscheduled treatments and torturing his 3 uncurable patients. It contradicts the note from his safe where he handed over treatment to somebody else, unless that someone else was a dark Mr. Hyde version of himself. This theory is in fact what I've settled on, that the director's inability to accept defeat on his 3 patients drove him to obsession and madness, going so far as to split off another personality who hurts the patients in the name of aid. It's poetic to consider the leader of the mental hospital himself having a disorder that would land him here. Patient 90, the filthy poop and maggots guy, seems to have been given a lobotomy based on environmental clues. In the Otherworld X-ray room, a maddened note describes an overwhelming symphony of noise before a sudden silence. And a mannequin just nearby needs us to poke into its skull with an orbitoclast to get a key. Patient 130, our paranoid girl, is the least horrific of the treatments. We still find Otherworld reflections of the blanket forts she built for safety in room L1. It seems, if anything, she was force-fed pills, though who's to say those weren't prescribed to help her. With all 3 chains followed, opening this puzzle box gives us nothing, except unveiling another 2-part puzzle box. This time, we need 2 rings to place on the angel. We did get basement access, though. Head down there, pick up a copper ring, and...
James.
Mary! Oh. Maria, I thought.
James was so excited to see Mary, but again was let down when it was Maria.
Glad you're alive.
She feels a special pull to protect Laura, which does make sense insofar as she clones Mary's feelings, but James doesn't know about the relationship between Mary and Laura at this point, so that's not consistent with Maria purely being a figment of James's imagination.
Well, what do you know? A stroll in the rain. How romantic.
Maria, what are you talking about?
I'm trying to keep things light, James. Just you and me.
James did not humor her. Maria helped us collect the second ring.
Not very cute, is it? Here, why don't you take it?
Then it's back to the angel door to turn those in. The poor woman immediately senses something terrible about this place. Look at her body language. She hesitates to go with James through that door. James, who's been cold to Maria until now, suspiciously is suddenly showing warmth as he offers his hand. I think having his hopes raised, then crashed as Maria showed up instead of Mary, sinks James to a new low here, and he finds himself wishing Maria would be gone. A wish that, empowered by manifestations of the Otherworld, has actually just doomed Maria to death, made all the more ominous by the note we find on the landing. It is done. Give James his 30 pieces of silver. In the flower shop at the start of the game, there was that note about the man who couldn't choose between white or red flowers, so he made the unlucky choice settling on both. That conundrum troubles James's heart all game. Does he choose white, his wife Mary, pure of heart, but, dead? Or does he choose red, passion and life, but also blood with Maria? Well, in this moment, James's feelings are swinging away from Maria.
Run! There! An elevator! Come on, hurry!
The feeling of loss here is beyond words. Slow piano music plays as we cross a few more rooms to the hospital's exit. Unmissable because it comes with the exit key, one doctor's journal discusses the Otherworld and rationalizes it as the happy place within one patient's mind. The final line seems applicable to James. Why, in the name of healing, must we drag him painfully into the world of our own reality? I think this one line encapsulates the theme of the whole game perfectly. Some, or most, of what we're seeing is not real in a strict sense. Through the characters he meets, the places he visits, and even the fights he wins, James strips away the barriers he's put up around his own grief and hurtful memories of his past on a journey to recall and process what's really going on with Mary. And there's great pain involved in this process. Is it really so important to seek truth over happiness? Seeking the truth just caused James to suffer the death of Maria, and there's still much more pain to come. The following section is just so peaceful. We need it after the claustrophobic and dense hospital levels and the death of Maria. We're in South Vale, outside, but still in the Otherworld. The streets are wide open, and the rain is beautiful, even with monsters around. Who even cares about piddly monsters now? They feel so inconsequential after what we just lost. There's a new determination and an anger in me, and therefore in James. You're gonna take Maria from me, Silent Hill? See what happens when you get in my way. This stretch had me devastated and reminded me of Zidane from Final Fantasy IX once he discovers who he really is in Memoria and can only limp on as a shell of himself, fighting aimlessly through monsters with no idea how to actually feel. Eventually, reach a map with elegant cursive handwriting telling us where to go, a payphone with further instructions. We'll call this writer the Doctor. We only see his handwriting a few times during this segment, and it gives little indication of the writer's identity, but they appear educated with a poetic bent. It's someone who had a key to the Historical Society and who knows the horrors that it contains, but who also wants to help James succeed. It's not the first time a beneficent observer has thrown us a bone to help us reach our goal. Somebody or a few people out there understand how to help those caught in Silent Hill's web. Ahead, crude spray paint warns of our crossing a threshold into nightmares as we step through another door. This whole dang town is colluding to scare people away from its Historical Society. What's odd about this alleged nightmare threshold is, so we've been playing in this hellish Otherworld for a good while now, and going through these doors actually pops us back into the safer foggy world. Behind the door, hanging below the grating on which we walk, is a new kind of enemy, but it's actually more of an environmental hazard. It's called a Mandarin, and it's a rehash of the flesh-lip boss. It hangs from above and has a big, gross mouth. This is kind of outside of the game knowledge, but both of these creatures with their big, gross mouths were designed to mimic Mary's verbal abuse of James in her final days. We gain nothing from shooting them, so just run through and spam dodge if you hear them go for an attack. Once we're through, look for the statue indicated by the doctor's letter. Someone surprising waits for us there. Angela is confronting her painful reality. Her mother has given up on her. She has no family.
I don't think she's here anymore, James.
Who?
My mama. She doesn't want to see me anymore.
Why would you think that? Oh, you didn't happen to see a little girl around here, did you?
A little girl?
Yeah, Angela? Are you all right? Angela?
No. Please. You shouldn't be here.
Angela, it's okay.
No, don't touch me!
Her reaction to James implies what happened to her. Asking after a little girl, then reaching out to touch Angela, returns her to her own memory as a little girl whose father abused her, and it changes her personality completely. James's choice of words is unfortunate, but the grabbing has been shown several times now with Angela and with Laura, and I believe it's meant to imply a certain violence in James. Once we're alone again, grab the key from below the statue, which comes with one final note from the doctor. It sounds like the doctor was made aware of Silent Hill's horrors, perhaps the Otherworld, perhaps monsters, through their patient who possessed a key to the town's historical society. But the doctor had no wish for any of this knowledge. He chose peace over knowledge. He forwards that key to us now as a final aid to James, who has chosen the latter. Odd that he knows our name, though. Then take the long walk to the Historical Society down Nathan Avenue. The inside of the society is not immediately remarkable except for one thing, a prominent painting of Pyramid Head, implying that others in this town know him and see him. I don't think it's the same Pyramid Head, though. So this town has long been mixed up in occult religion. The cult, which is explored more in other Silent Hill games, seems to have a boner for penitence and judgment, and dresses their executioners, or penance enforcers, in such costumes. James merely latches onto this image when manifesting his own guilt. How did he have this image in his head back when first encountering Pyramid Head in the Woodside Apartments, though? Maybe he and Mary visited the Historical Society back when they were tourists here and saw this painting? Or maybe, loop theory. Leading down from the back wall of the society is a long staircase, a metaphor for this abyss we've been warned of. It takes James to the very pit of his mind as he enters the next level, Toluca Prison. Why is this inside the Historical Society? How is it so deep underground? There isn't really an answer for the logistics of these next areas. Let it suffice that the depth is metaphorical, and the prison may not actually be here at all since the Historical Society was allegedly built in its place. And we're explicitly shown the non-reality when James makes a sideways leap into a pit where gravity is orthogonal. It's a clear sign that we're not perceiving real space right now. He ultimately arrives, with no acknowledgement of the great heights he's been jumping from, to the prison cafeteria and another face that he hasn't seen in quite some time.
Ain't no big deal. Just put the gun to their head and pow.
Eddie?
Oh, hi, James.
What happened here?
Who was that?
I don't know. He just came at me.
Okay. So he attacked you, and you shot him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. He made me do it.
Okay, calm down, Eddie.
Yeah, we haven't seen too much of Eddie yet. His story is only tangential to our own, but we start to see just how untrustworthy and dangerous he might be. Our cold breath starts to match Eddie's here, and after the scene, noticed frost covering the table where Eddie executed this man. Could be a James, but more likely it's another copy of the dead man from the fridge where we met Eddie. The prison front office immediately shows us a flashy hunting rifle, but our puzzle box is slightly buried this time. It's out back in the exercise yard. We've got to collect 5 weights for a balance puzzle. The first is available right near the start in the prison chapel. This is where some Silent Hill 1 knowledge might improve our experience because the religious themes here feel pertinent to the cult of the other games. The religion practiced here was clearly of Christian flavor, but with a heavy emphasis on repentance and punishment. Then, in the prison, the storylines of the unseen NPCs are not quite as well developed as they were in previous areas, but there are still a few miniature stories that we can try to piece together. Start with one of the cells in A block. It has a note that its tenant has been moved to death row on the warden's order. It is a little onerous that the warden can simply order inmates to death row if he wishes it. This guy might be dangerous. The prison has 4 animal-themed doors that we can unlock based on how we balance the scales out in the yard. The snake door is the first one we can open, leading to death row. Throughout this prison, mannequins have learned to climb the walls, and they've gotten a little bit more aggressive. We're meant to flip the lights on and move quickly because the light switches here are all timed. Now, there isn't much else on death row that obviously ties to that prisoner whom the warden ordered here, so I think it's fair to assume that this one execution report is for that same man. Apparently, he had everyone tricked that he uses a wheelchair, but when it came time to approach the electric chair, he stood up and walked himself to it, shocking the guards. And they drop a little breadcrumb here about the need to carefully review the medical history of each patient. There is something strange going on here with the prisoners medically. At least, the warden thinks so. Our death row journey gave us a weight and the key for the hunting rifle. Definitely conserve this gun for the final bosses, though it's great at picking off mannequins from the ceiling here if you're feeling confident about later. That new weight gives us the balance combination we need to access the D block on the second floor, which contains the most coherent story out of the prison. It starts with a creepy letter from a guard who spotted somebody walking around after lights out and, mistaking it for a guard, threatens to report them. On the back, they've responded, "Catch me if you can." Thus begins the tale of the slippery inmate, number 777. Unrelated to that, I think, one cell here has some odd writing surrounding a goopy hole on the floor. It sounds like they found an item they know they shouldn't possess, but decide to keep it secret from the warden. I'm not sure this relates to the rest of the story, so let me know if you have a guess what they found. In the guard office of D Block, find an interesting log. One prisoner, number 140, claims that our escape artist 777 is slipping out of his cell and tormenting him. The guards found no evidence for this when they checked out his cell, and the poor gaslit 140 is recommended for psychiatric evaluation, only for him to be justified that very afternoon when both prisoners are found missing from their cells, barricaded in the bathroom. Let's take a look in 777's cell ourselves. Looks like he had a key hidden behind the bricks that the guards didn't find. A note from the prisoner taunts the guards for failing to find it in their search, but a teasing hint on the back tells them, now us, to check the bathroom. This key opens a cell, probably 140's, who's been digging out their back wall. A paranoid note from 140 expresses fear that 777 will come get him before he can dig through. But the back almost reads like a threat. Let him come. As if 140, by breaking into the bathroom, now has a trap set. Carved into the bathroom wall are a taunt and a threat from 777. They won't save you. Y'all, I'm on the edge of my seat to see who wins this. In the showers, another manic note scribbled over a few times. I told you. Didn't listen. He's here. I think prisoner 140, sick of getting tormented by 777, understood how to break down barriers to the Otherworld and has actually sought out Pyramid Head to be his protection. Or to kill them both. If 140 is going to die either way, at least he gets the last laugh. It's actually a common theme in James's story, Eddie's, and Angela's too, getting pushed too far and reacting with violence. I can believe 140 was successful in summoning Pyramid Head because the bathroom is showing signs of otherworldly rust and decay. Side strategy note, this area is full of supplies if you scour it before advancing, and any pre-killing you do is only going to help you in a minute. Once you're ready to unleash hell, reach in one of the nastiest holes all game for another wait, fully expecting Pyramid Head to pop out. Except, he doesn't. A bunch of enemies get up, and some nurses break down the barricade for us to get out more easily, but all of this lead up has been a tease. We don't learn any more about those two prisoners, but considering how they both vanished from the bathroom and what we saw of the rust and bugs, I do believe prisoner 140 succeeded in calling up the Otherworld and or Pyramid Head himself to drag both men out of our world. Now go rearrange the weights. It's time to simply walk into Boredor. This area includes the infirmary with its own mini story. Recall the increased medical scrutiny recommended after a death row prisoner surprised the guards by walking. We open with a guard's log. Between two normal entries, rumors of disease among the prisoners, reported to administration. The admins took that report seriously because another note in the visitation room claims the guards treat prisoners like lepers now. They're terrified of some odd illness spreading among the prisoners. Except the prisoners seem fine? Another note on the wall seems to be from a nurse. The warden locked himself in upstairs, terrified of some disease. Perhaps the disease is actually in the mind of the staff. Supporting this, it sounds like an emergency medical report determined no sickness in the prisoners, but this follow-up letter, typed and sealed by the warden, disavows that medical report, insisting that they are sick and more invasive methods should be used to prove it. Yikes. Well, we can find that original report in the back of the infirmary. Indeed, no sign of any sickness, contagious or otherwise. The warden just wants to believe there's a sickness, but only he sees it. And yes, this does parallel the hospital story. If we work our way up to his office, overlooking cell block A, the warden's obsession shows clear. He's been hard at work, typing out what's on his mind. Finish his sentence for another wait. We're now able to open the Dove door to the prison's basement and the F cell block. I think this basement would have been a lot more creepy if we weren't already deep underground. One cell down here, full of canvases and paint splatters, housed an artist whose style appears childish, except for one work called Burning Man, which, quite unknowable without outside knowledge, depicts the burning of the Lakeview Hotel, a location we'll play through later. We need one final wait, and it's down here. We can see it in this locked isolation cell, a terrifying room covered in spikes on all sides with no windows and only a single light, if the guards allow it on. And there's one other normal cell I want to draw attention to down here. Somehow this prisoner was favored with books and ritual materials to celebrate Silent Hill's cult, the Order. This may just be an Easter egg for Silent Hill 1. Silent Hill 2 doesn't really involve the cult much in its story, being a mostly pure and freestanding psychological horror story. But if we're going to read into its presence here, do you think maybe this had something to do with the alleged sickness going around or the poisoning of the warden's mind? A notice on the wall of the guard room says prisoner 239 was transferred to the solitary cell that houses the weight we need. Spring that cell open, grab the weight, and of course, the door shuts on us for 20 seconds, causing a long moment of terror as we're trapped inside, and something else bashes on the door. There's also a note in here that seems to be from the guard apologizing for sending the prisoner here. Maybe somebody thought that they needed protection and hid them here. The door eventually releases, and we're free to go use all 6 weights to balance the scale right to the center, activating a puzzle of nooses on the gallows. Once we identify the one criminal whose crime was justified, pull their corresponding noose, and we fall a great distance into our next area. The fact that we have puzzles here acknowledging varying degrees of guilt with nuance to some of the crimes makes me wonder what James, Eddie, and Angela are doing in Silent Hill. Each of their crimes, which we're still uncovering, could be considered justified. They were pushed, and they pushed back. This town and this experience could certainly be seen as a punishment for these characters, but it also may very well be their judgment, an active trial. We'd better pass ours. James has been jumping in holes throughout the game, but these next 2 come quickly back to back, representing an acceleration toward the truth. These jumps are never dangerous, but that doesn't stop them from feeling like they are each time. And it's not just one button press to jump. The game always forces us 3 times to hit jump before James sends it, which adds to the gravity of the choice. At the very bottom of our descent, the next level is a short one, the Labyrinth. There's no random person's story to be tracking through notes this time. We're here to learn more about our main NPCs. We did not get Angela's last name yet, but on a second playthrough, we'd realized this newspaper article is about her dad, Thomas Orozco, who was found murdered in his living room with multiple stab wounds. The article emphasizes a history of violence and drunkenness. Indeed, this area is littered with empty liquor and beer bottles. We're in Angela's family apartment, and she's curled up in her own room, worried we're her father as we enter.
Please.
But her father shows up a moment
I'll be
later.
good, I promise. Tell him I'll be good, please. Daddy!
This upsetting union of 2 bodies, stuck melded in the position of sex in a walking bed frame, may be Angela's Pyramid Head, her main challenge and antagonist, an embodiment of her guilt. We know enough now to piece together that Angela murdered her own father. It's why she carried a bloody knife the second time we met her. Now, Angela might see her father manifested differently than we see him, even now. Masahiro Ito is clear that we witness everything from James's perspective and that Angela's would be different. It's interesting to me that even when 2 people get close and their Silent Hills mix, we still perceive our own take on the monster and not the perspective of the person who owns that manifestation. It's as though this monster is always sitting here like in a default state as a featureless pillar and just gets rendered as whatever it needs to be in each character's viewpoint. This boss is big and clumsy, like a drunkard, but simply defeating him in combat wouldn't really get the point across. So there's a sort of chase sequence as the middle stretch of the boss fight, as we travel more halls modeled after Angela's apartment and hide in the same closet where she once hid from her father as a child. Seeing the poor girl's blanket and teddy in here makes me cry. I can feel the terror of young Angela, and it has me wanting to do something about it. A few televisions throughout the area replay abusive language that her dad would yell at her. Destroy those. The second time that we encounter Angela's hiding place, there's a photograph inside ripped down the middle. Her and her mother torn from her dad and brother. We don't really have evidence in-game of her brother being complicit in her father's abuse, but this photo maybe hints at it, and at best, her brother would still bear guilt for forcing his younger sister to protect herself. After shooting out a third TV, one of the scariest little moments in this game came for me personally. It's just big, scary machines, engines, and pipes. It's a theme that not nearly enough horror games have played with, I think. That machinery lines the ceiling in the room where we finally defeat this boss, the abstract daddy for Angela. The jury's out on what it means to handle someone else's Silent Hill problems for them. Does James win points here for being a savior, or did he rob Angela of her chance at redemption? Well, Angela has a surprising depth of insight on James.
It's okay. It's over.
Don't even try.
Try what?
Like you don't know. I see what you're doing. It's always the same with you. You're only after one thing.
At first, she suspects James may violate her like her father did. But even if not something quite so crass, she pivots into a tangential accusation of him being unfaithful to Mary and finding another lover. It's making a lot of sense why these two cross paths so much in their journeys. James to teach her about rushing to judgment, and Angela to expose James to the pain that misdirected love can cause. With Angela resolved for now, we can enter the labyrinth proper. We're directed straight to one room containing another familiar face, and it's the first time James correctly identifies her as Maria at first, rather than mistaking Mary.
Maria? Maria! I thought that thing killed you. Are you hurt?
Not at all, silly.
But the thing... It stabbed you. There was blood everywhere.
Stabbed me? What do you mean?
It chased us to the elevator and then...
James, what are you talking about? You were always so forgetful. Remember that time in the hotel?
Maria's demeanor this time, though, is different, seeming sly or even evil, and it's not helped by the camera work and the slow zooms. She's actively referencing memories that James made with Mary, which invalidates her ignorance of Mary back in South Vale and the questions she was asking us about her.
Aren't you Maria?
I'm not your Mary.
So you are Maria.
I am. If you want me to be.
All I want from you is an answer.
Doesn't matter who I am. I am here for you, James. See? I'm real. Don't you want to touch me?
I don't know.
Well, if you happen to make up your mind, I'll be waiting.
Whatever this is, I'm scared. It's self-aware now. It can be Maria if we want it to be. If we make up our mind, if we choose red flowers, she will be waiting. Crazy theory, but could the first Maria have been real and this one is now a vision spawned by the town? It kind of feels like a monster in disguise, but you realize what it is and it knows that you know. Something about that hidden understanding of the threat beneath is so creepy to me. Or another possibility, Jameses have been dying and restarting in loops. Couldn't Maria do the same? This is perhaps just a different iteration of her that made it farther and gained some more understanding about James in the meantime. The labyrinth area still has a puzzle box if we think about it more abstractly. We don't need 3 keys, we just need to venture into the labyrinth 3 times and make it back here. The first time in, the rotten door opens. We just need to assemble a lighter here that's in 3 pieces. And there is a little bit of James lore in the rotten area. We run into James's office with his cubicle and desk. Then a single nurse creeps out from behind it, which maybe hints at James having an affair at his office. Then assemble that lighter, use it to open a hole, and we're reset back to the labyrinth entrance for our second expedition. This time, the desolate area opens to us. It's a mini area where a few keys open a few locks. If there's anything special here, there is a brief Pyramid Head chase segment where we can get a trophy called Inner Sanctum for entering his room. I don't think Pyramid Head literally is a normal dude with a bedroom. It's probably more like James wondered in passing whether Pyramid Head ever rests, and this is what James's mind came up with to answer that. Eventually, we reach a hole to jump in and reset for our third labyrinth foray. This time, it's the ruined area, which recalls the Woodside Apartments where we first discovered the Otherworld. Simply survive a wave of enemies in this apartment 3 times over while an alarm blares. The 3rd time, there's a Mandarin enemy, but the game gives generous iframes when hopping barriers or shimmying through holes that we can abuse to save ammo until the door opens for us. Then at the end of the hall, open a door to room 208.
Maria?
Maria is dead again. Not skewered, but seemingly wasted from a disease, like what happened to Mary. This is the most emotion we'll see out of James all game, as he's forced to mourn the loss of Mary, or Mary's stand-in yet again. But how quickly does James dry his tears and turn away, resolute? So this room was marked number 208, which was way too prominent to be meaningless. 208 was also the room in Woodside where that note from someone omniscient spoke about a prison of our own making. But look at the bars here. They've been blasted outward from within. I think this time, James gets it. He has freed his mind from its prison. He's starting to sense that Mary's death is his fault, and he's accepted that he won't run from the truth this time. We just have to go find her. James borrows Pyramid Head's sword here, the massive weight of his guilt being the same key to his freedom, which in an immediate sense means scaring away these mannequins from the walls. Then find a graveyard with a grave dug just for James, leading to yet another leap of faith. Below is a mess. The walls, ceiling, and floor are absolutely soaked in blood. But this isn't James's vision. We're witnessing bleed-in from the blood-soaked Silent Hill world of Eddie.
Couldn't leave well enough alone, huh? You just had to follow me all the way out here. How many times do I have to kill you?
Eddie? Whoa, Eddie, it's me.
Oh. Hi, James.
Eddie, what are you doing?
Well, what's it look like I'm doing? You fat, disgusting piece of shit. You make me sick. You gonna cry? You gonna run to your mama? Waste of skin? Why don't you just kill yourself? Well, maybe he was right. Maybe I am nothing but a fat, disgusting piece of shit. But you know what? It doesn't matter if you're smart, dumb, ugly, pretty. It's all the same once you're dead. And a corpse can't laugh.
Eddie.
What's that? You want to talk down to me some more? Tell me to relax? You're just like the rest of them, James.
No, I don't want to.
Shut up! You think I'm stupid. You think I don't see it. But you've been laughing at me all along. Ever since we first met. But you ain't laughing now, are you?
You need help, Eddie.
Don't get all holy on me, James. This town called you too. You and me are the same. We're not like other people, don't you know that? Well, you're about to find out.
Eddie gets it. He understands how Silent Hill calls those who have something to answer for. Unfortunately, it seems he's not as far on his healing journey as James. It sounds like he's being forced to kill his bully, or at least he thinks that's what he's supposed to do, over and over again. To us, the bodies do look like corpses. Now, this boss fight against Eddie is supposed to be a tense hide and seek among the hanging beef, with Eddie surprisingly agile, darting in and out of the fog. But I spent all game collecting ammo and health, and darned if I'm not going to have fun with that, so I wasted 6 minutes here shooting down all the beef to make the rest of the fight hilarious. Partway through, Eddie sets all the beef rotating around, which had basically no effect in my vegetarian world. Several more shots, and James puts down Eddie to no fanfare. This is different from the monsters we've been fighting. Killing Eddie awards a trophy called a human being. James has been slaying monsters or abstractions until now, but this? We just took an actual human life. but this is totally brushed off and doesn't cause any additional lingering trauma for James, so cool. Best of luck on your next loop, Eddie. If loops follow directly, he'll be waking up in his van up by the overlook any moment now, wondering whose blue car is parked next to him. After that fight, we're just outside, at ground level. How far down did we descend since entering the Historical Society? 14 flights? This is weird. With most of his memory and knowledge recovered at this point, James hops in a rowboat to cross Toluca Lake northward towards his and Mary's special place, the Lakeview Hotel. It's now meaningful how James gazed out over the water upon meeting Maria at Rosewater Park. On a clear day, he would have been able to see the hotel. The fog is an obvious but strong metaphor for the mental confusion that visitors to Silent Hill experience. Now, this is a bit that I didn't want to include because nobody caught this in the original game at the time, and it was just something tweeted out by Ito later as a big reveal. That this hotel burned down before the events of this game, so we're actually seeing the Otherworld version of the hotel right now.
This place hasn't changed at all in 3 years.
That's because we're filling it in from James's memory. Of course it would look the same. But since we now know the secret, we can at least pay attention to clues and evidence that support that. So far, it makes the fire painting from the prison make sense. I just don't like how this reveal throws away any definition of the Otherworld that we had, both in appearance and in purpose. There's a Charlie XCX apple out in the courtyard, then we enter the hotel, our final level of the game. The room James shared with Mary is number 312, so that's our long-term goal. Yet another 3-piece puzzle box stands in our way first, though, this time an extra-large music box. We're also going to need a videotape that James recorded during his previous stay here, which a letter addressed directly to us at reception says is located in the first-floor employee section. Like the Labyrinth, there aren't any mini-stories to follow about off-screen characters here, but there is a bit of story around the cleaning staff. It starts in the basement utility room, where a note simply mentions the fireplace in the conference room, which becomes our short-term goal. Hey, remember how we chased Laura for the middle third of the game, then she just disappeared?
Did I scare you?
Yeah, you did. I guess I deserved it, huh? The fart face that I am.
Maybe. Then again, maybe you're not so bad. Just annoying.
Uh-huh. So, you got any other things planned? I think I saw a dark room back there you could lock me up in.
No. I think you've had enough. For now.
Well, that's reassuring.
Besides, I need your help finding Mary. She's here. Isn't she? Come on, tell me.
I wish I knew.
But she said it in her letter.
Wait. So there really is a letter?
Oh. Yeah. Want to read it? Just don't tell Rachel, okay?
Who's Rachel?
She's our nurse. I, took it from her locker.
My dearest Laura, I'm leaving this letter with Rachel to give to you after I'm gone. I'm far away now, in a quiet, beautiful place. Please forgive me for not saying goodbye before I left. Be well, Laura. Don't be too hard on the sisters. And Laura, about James. I know you hate him because you think he isn't nice to me, but please, give him a chance. It's true, he can be a little surly sometimes, and he doesn't laugh much. But underneath, he's a really sweet person. I love you, Laura. I love you like my very own daughter. I wish things were different. I wish we could be happy together, like we talked about. Even so, I know you will have a good life. You're a strong, smart, beautiful girl. Happy 8th birthday, Laura. Your friend, Mary.
Feelings have cooled off since our last meeting. In a world where everything seems to get more painful for James as he processes his past, Laura breaks the pattern, growing in affection for us the less we rely on fantasy to hide. Laura even allows us to read the farewell letter that Mary left her before she died. And James is so close to getting it. For the second time, he realizes the timing doesn't match up between Mary's death and Laura's age. But instead of calling Laura wrong, this time he second guesses his own beliefs. Indeed, it's possible that Mary didn't die 3 years ago. We also heard she was sick for 3 years before dying, so maybe it's a metaphor and she's been dead, in quotes, to James for 3 years, only dying for real more recently. Continue exploring the hotel for now, hoping to accumulate our videotape plus 3 figurines for the music box. One utility room contains a big indoor grow operation. A note left on the chalkboard cautions that the Hedera helix plant, common ivy, has a pest and needs to be kept separate from the other plants. This isn't part of a puzzle, it just feels like another throwaway metaphor for James. The helix in the name implies the twisting cycle that James is caught in. Though, a helix is not a circle. Helices move in 3 dimensions. Perhaps there's hope for us yet. On the second floor, in a secret space off the reading room, rests a briefcase, gating access to that employee area where we're supposed to find the videotape. Finding the code to open this briefcase is complicated and needs several random items that I won't call out, but their locations are hinted by the photos laying on the bed. A prominent poster for the flower shop on the walls here might have encouraged James to buy flowers for his wife, either in her happy or her sick days, and explain why that shop appeared early on in our journey. The hallway on the second floor is full of symbolism. There's a key near a bright red robe and shoes, and a little farther in the room is a beautiful twilight cover apple, contrasting the rotten one we found earlier. If we pop into room 202 with that key, fix the mirror, and place the shiny red apple, we appropriately collect the Snow White figurine for the music box in the next room over. Note that we could have placed the rotten apple here too, but choosing life and beauty and vigor is consistent with our pro-Maria stance so far. Continuing through the hall now gets us on the 3rd floor to finally follow up on the conference room fireplace. We can see another figurine inside, but the fireplace is locked. A note forwards us to room 107. And if we try to approach room 312, which James shared with Mary, we'll be there soon, dear. Let's head down to 107 and notice that the hotel has started to unravel. The wallpaper peels, paintings hang out of their frames, and the glass window panes are mostly shattered. As we inch closer to the truth, James begins to realize he has the incorrect image of the hotel in his mind. The cleaning staff were indeed working on cleaning room 107. It's got a really big TV though. James hates those. Sorry to make more work for the staff. A note here redirects us again, though not as far this time. It just indicates the garden, to which the French doors are wide open. Blast our way to the gazebo, where the fireplace key we seek is on an overturned mop cart. I don't think there's anything out of place or scary about this little housekeeping vignette, unless you count how the manager kept sending them to do new tasks before the old one was complete. Let's go open that fireplace now and nab the Cinderella figurine as the clock strikes 1.
God damn it.
A Mandarin enemy Kool-Aid Mans it into the room. This is the one spot all game it's beneficial to kill one of these rather than run. It's more of a mini-boss. Then we can safely exit through the opening that it gave us. By now, we've got the tools to open that hidden briefcase for the employee section key, but the elevator we need to take there can hold exactly 1 James worth of weight, so we're forced to stash all of our items, even our flashlight and our photo of our wife, so forgive me if some of the footage is dark here. At the risk of ruffling some feathers, I'll say this section feels a little bit like padding. The puzzles here just center around getting back out of this area. The break room down here has a space heater that reads, "I'm Johnny, one hot guy," and it's plugged in next to some cardboard boxes. For those who are aware that the hotel burned down, I think we're supposed to make the connection that this space heater is what started the fire. But like, this was the late 80s probably, people would have been smoking in bed. In a safe nearby, collect James's videotape after solving a puzzle. Work our way through to the Venus bar, where a sparking jukebox may also allude to the fire, but in front of that is our final figurine of the Little Mermaid. Then go retrieve our junk by the elevator and slap those 3 figurines in the music box in the lobby, which yields the key we need to open the 3rd floor corridor and finally reach our special place. room 312 in the Lakeview Hotel. A whole lifetime ago in the Woodside Apartments, I had told us to remember room 213, where a Jorps sat in front of a glowing television. Our memory back then didn't quite have the room number right and some other details, but that was certainly a preview of room 312 here at the Lakeview, where James can play his videotape and finally recover the rest of his memories. On a VCR that has recent handprints in the dust. Are we not the first James to make it this far?
Are you taping again? Come on. I don't know why, but I just love it here. It's so peaceful. You know what I heard? This whole area used to be a sacred place. I think I can see why. It's too bad we have to leave. Promise you'll take me again, James.
The tape begins with the last good memory we have with our wife crashing down with a cough that sealed our fate. We suffocated Mary. Murdered, or if you wish to be kind, euthanized, after an extended illness that made her unrecognizable to us, not just physically, but emotionally cold, hostile, and jealous. We killed her at the end, not the disease. And now James remembers.
Hey, there you are. Do you know where Mary is? Come on, talk to me.
Mary's gone. She's dead.
Liar. That's a lie.
No. It's the truth.
She died because she was sick?
I killed her.
Killer? Why did you do it? I hate you. I want her back. Give her back to me. I knew it. You didn't care about her. I hate you, James. I hate you. I hate you. I hate you. She was always waiting for you. Why? Why?
I'm sorry. Mary, you know, isn't here.
Why do we need Pyramid Head when we have Laura? Actual question. The guilt is insane. Now, if we're allowing the possibility that Maria is manifested out of James's desires and his selfish side, I think we should also allow that Laura might be the other half of that, and perhaps equally real/unreal. Laura is the half that did stay by Mary until the end, and the remorseful half that beats up James for killing her. Chasing Laura did shape a big part of James's journey through Silent Hill, just like Pyramid Head did. It led him emotionally and physically closer to the truth. She really is as much of a Pyramid Head analog as she is with Maria. I could see those three in kind of a triangular relationship for James. James sits there, maybe for a long time, in contemplation. Wake up in what looks like the Otherworld Hotel, but may actually be the closest to a real location that we see all game. We're sitting in despair until a haunted radio message comes through from Mary encouraging us onward. It's a lot like the radio message we received very early in the game. The circular nature of that is another small hint for me toward loop theory. The Burned Hotel is not a proper level. It's short and lasts only long enough to let us process our feelings on what was just revealed. Scraped into the ash on one wall is my favorite message all game. There is no healing of thy bruise, thy wound is grievous. It's a quote from the Book of Nahum in the Hebrew Bible. Context adds a lot to this. These lines are followed by, upon whom hath not thy wickedness passed continually? This chapter concerns the city of Nineveh with a reputation for cruelty to its enemies and also for extreme pride. The quote's presence here is calling out James for the pain he has visited upon others, Mary and Laura, but also maybe Angela and Eddie? An excellent choice of Bible passage for Silent Hill 2 to reference regarding James at the crossroads of pride and humility. A little later is another Bible verse on the theme of repentance. Isaiah 1:16. Wash yourselves, make yourselves clean, remove the evil of your deeds from my sight. Burned away is the next sentence. Cease to do evil. There's a recording in the nurse's office that seems to refer at once to Mary's treatments not saving her after the pain they caused, as well as imply that all the pain James has gone through on this journey may also be for naught. It would certainly feel that way to someone who could watch him get caught in a loop over and over. Make our way down to the flooded basement, through it, and then a final scene with Angela, who mistakes us for her mother at first. A cruel trick by the town. It's just like James thinking he found Mary, only for it to be Maria.
Mama? Mama, I was looking for you. You're the only one left. Maybe then I can finally rest. Mama. What's wrong? Wait. You're not my mama. It's you.
I'm sorry, Angela. I think you were right. What we're looking for, it's not here. Not anymore.
Thank you for helping me earlier. But I wish you hadn't. Even Mama said it. I deserve what happened.
No, Angela, that is not true.
Don't pity me. I'm not worth it. Or maybe you think you can save me? Will you love me? Care for me? Heal all my pain? That's what I thought. James. Give me back the knife.
No, I won't.
Saving it for yourself. Have it your way. It doesn't change anything.
It's hot as hell in here.
You see it too? For me, it's always like this.
The way she accuses James of preying upon her, we really haven't seen James live up to, aside from some arm grabs. We refuse to return her knife for the second time, seeming to address Angela's problems for her, but meaningfully, she claims that it won't make a difference. This cutscene is also the main reveal, if we hadn't picked up on other clues, that everyone's Silent Hill looks different. Angela's town is always on fire like this. A completely different experience, tailored to her own traumas that James is only able to perceive while he's nearby. But we do know Angela sees the fog too, because they speak about it together at the start of the game, so maybe everyone shares the fog, and the flames are what she has in place of monsters. There's one of each enemy lurking here before the end of the game, but they're not aggressive now, they're sick. The need to fight is gone, but James has to prove that. Suddenly, Otherworld. A more typical Otherworld. It's back to Rust, and our favorite people.
James!
Leave her alone. Leave us both the hell alone.
Here, more than the previous 2 times, it's clear that we're being shown Maria's death just to hurt us. And this time, aware of everything, it really takes a toll on James. We have confronted our truth when we confessed to Laura, but much like the hole jumps, which take 3 confirmations, we need to prove our commitment to the bit.
I know what you are. I know why I needed you. But it's all over now. I don't need you anymore. I'm ready.
He is for sure addressing Mary here as much as Pyramid Head. The fact that there's 2 of them for this fight, I mostly take as the game demonstrating that Pyramid Head is a concept more than a man. It's also a more engaging boss fight this way. James is done beating himself up. He does not need them. With Pyramid Head defeated, grab 2 eggs that mirror the apple choice from earlier. Using the rust-colored egg to advance acknowledges reality, but could also be seen as dwelling on the past. So my James uses the scarlet egg in rejection of that. I choose life, choose a job, choose a career, choose washing machines and electrical tin openers. I have been relatively forgiving of James in this script, but if you're playing this game naturally, James won't seem like a good person right now. He killed Mary, forgot about it, might have been having affairs while she was sick, started moving on to a new woman, and has been manifesting little monsters all game instead of confronting his guilt. But this long hallway en route to the final boss replays dialogue from Mary's sickness, revealing the toll she took on James. It's an 11th hour reversal. Turns out Mary rejected the flowers he brought her, yells at him to get the hell out, and says it again. And that's just what was openly directed at James. All the other depressing remarks would have taken a big toll as well. Of course, we're not mad at Mary for lashing out, but just maybe we soften our hearts to James here after hearing everything that he went through. Mary was in so much pain. I don't think we can argue that James killing Mary wasn't an act of mercy. But the whole point of the game and the nucleus of the conflict and why James has so much guilt is because James can't decide whether that mercy was for Mary's sake or his own. This scene plays out differently based on the ending you've locked in, which for us is the selfish one. I'll shut up, but I just couldn't stop thinking that Mary looks like Michael Cera here.
Mary?
James. I've been waiting. It's
been so long. Didn't you want to see me?
Yes, more than anything. You're all I ever wanted.
That's not true, is it?
Mary?
You killed me, James.
Yes. I did. I couldn't bear to see you suffer.
Don't make excuses. I know how you saw me, how you felt. You really hated me. Didn't you?
It's true, I may have had some of those feelings. It was a long 3 years. I was so tired.
I guess I understand. I know I was a burden. You wanted a long, happy life. Something I couldn't give. Can she?
Mary, please, if I could...
No, James. Those were the last precious moments I had. How could I ever forgive you?
I don't believe that the real Mary, who loved James, would not forgive him. It's James's fear that causes this vision of her to speak like that. If we hadn't realized at the time that the flesh-lit boss in the hospital is meant to represent Mary, the fact that this boss resembles that one completes the connection. And the spider theme is back with the shape of her cage as it breaks. There's symbolism in the flow of this fight too, not just the visuals. Calm as the boss backs off, cut with bursts of aggression as James experienced in her final months. It's a strong argument for video games as a medium being art. There's one phase above ground, one in the darkness, and a final phase back above until we finally bid farewell to Mary.
James.
This is not the woman we know. These are not the memories we want to live with. It's time to move on, James. Put one through the heart.
James.
What is this?
Is what you've been looking for.
He doesn't even read that letter. Taking this journey is confronting his guilt, but leaving with Maria is moving on, leaving the ghosts here in Silent Hill.
Better do something about that cough.
Oh, no. Sorry to ruin the oh shit moment by over-explaining, but obviously Maria's cough is meant to hint that she might get sick too and doom James to further unhappiness. Can he ever really leave? Is Maria even able to exist healthy in the outside world, etc.? But I offer a positive note. This game is all about interpretation. James's response as he hops in the car to metal music-backed credits could also be heard as callous, carefree, even confident. We're getting out of here. No tolerance for another sickness, thank you very much. You'd better do something about that cough. So, what happened? To put it out there in concrete terms, as fast and cutting as many corners as I can. James Sunderland killed his wife Mary before disease could take her, and he feels horribly guilty about it. Silent Hill operates as a purgatory and forges a letter from Mary to draw him in. The town tests him, and he died many times over until this visit that we control. Armed with the help from his past and some well-wishing observers, James finally wins this time, accepting his guilt and allowing himself to move on with Maria. But I could talk for hours on meanings and different interpretations. So could you. The community for Silent Hill 2 is very smart and passionate. And a game that intentionally leaves most ideas to the player's interpretation has created a very healthy discourse, since the ambiguity automatically shields from bad faith commenters saying, "No, you're wrong." Everybody's response to this game will be different. Even the language that I use in this video, the details I highlight and ones I brush over will likely influence your thoughts on the game. But of course, I highly recommend playing it yourself to see what you notice. There is more every time. In my current take, I allow selfishness for James in the name of forgiveness and growth. I want Maria to be real. I want her to not be sick. I want James to smile for the first time in 6 years. I believe Mary was in pain, but that James put an end to his suffering more than hers, and that he deserves forgiveness for that at this point. Making a new start with Maria can save 2 lives, not just 1. I believe Eddie is a long way from finding peace, but I believe the town of Silent Hill is designed as a purgatory to help the guilty find forgiveness. I believe everyone perceives the town as foggy, but James also sees it with rust and monsters, and Angela also sees it in flames, and Eddie also sees it in bloody frost. I believe that Laura may not be real, or that she's the other side of a coin toss that landed Maria side up. Because, and we didn't really touch on this, but it doesn't make sense for a child to be caught in Silent Hill, and because she does represent the selfless side of James through her connection with Mary, I do really kind of see her as a positive version of Pyramid Head. And I guess I believe most of those written memos and diaries, those characters we hear of but never see, like the hotel cleaning staff, the Saul Street janitor, and the prisoners who dig into the bathroom, and those 3 uncurable hospital patients, I believe those are all fictitious. Maybe they're inspired by real people that James has awareness of, but extrapolated and used by the town's magic as guides and teaching tools. And ultimately, I do believe in loop theory, and I believe that's how Bloober team leans in the Silent Hill 2 remake. For one, Silent Hill 2 has a strong New Game Plus experience with a small amount of new content and also 5 more endings. The nature of experiencing things again and having it be different based on the prior playthrough in a meta sense does support loop theory. But also, I think the nature of being a remake supports this too, and that Bloober team leaned into that. Yes, it's a remake, but if we accept loop theory, we also kind of have a sequel on our hands, with players in the year 2024 simply experiencing later loops for James than players did back in 2001. Supporting this, I can reveal now the solution to the strange photograph puzzle. By gathering every photo, or enough that you're able to fill in the gaps, and indexing into the messages on the photo by the number of objects depicted in the photo, and placing that number into a sentence based on the number written on the photo, we get a message. You've been here for 2 decades. No, strange photographs weren't in the original game. James has been here for 2 decades. Could be a message to the players, of course, because ambiguity. But for me, that's a nod from Bloober toward poor James being caught in a loop for 20 years. And that's not to mention glimpses of the past. At 26 points throughout the game, you can click on spots that make James kind of zone out as the camera highlights a familiar scene or object from the original Silent Hill 2. There's a trophy named Echoes for getting all of these. I almost feel like Bloober started with the desire to include collectibles from the top and filled in the details from there, asking what could make sense to collect without ruining the immersion, and then landing on photos and glimpses of the past as a solution to that question. So if you see anyone hating on Bloober for how the remake pushes loop theory, tell them to stop. It's our need for collectibles as modern ADHD gamers that forced loop theory on us. Phew, what an amazing game. As the first Silent Hill I was blessed to get to play, aside from Short Message, this remake is a really fun experience. Even though as a millennial horror gamer, I had known a good deal of the plot and surprises going in purely through osmosis. When this game released, I played straight through it, got the sad ending because I kept myself wounded the whole time for value, then immediately checked how to get the platinum trophy and replayed the game again and again until I had it. The whole time I was agonizing over what video to create. There are already excellent Silent Hill 2 explained videos thanks to the original, and as a newcomer to the series, I figured I'd commit too many blunders trying to explain it anyway. There wasn't quite enough strategic depth or cleverly placed content to cover the game in my usual format either. But then I realized two things. That even with excellent plot explained videos for the original game out there, people deserve one that covers the remake. And how interesting some of the hidden stories are if you piece them together. It's hard to do while you're in the action of the game, so I was very excited to stitch the janitor and the prison sickness and the hospital director's stories together for y'all here. And, you know, make sense of what happens in the video game. If you had a good time here, you can help me out a great deal by hitting the good buttons for me. A like or a comment is free and it helps me get my work in front of more eyeballs, which in turn lets me continue making videos like this one for y'all. If you would like to help out the channel in other ways, I post behind the scenes updates and making of content over on Patreon. We've also got a cozy little Discord if you'd like to be a fedora wearing, cigar smoking member of the Mafia, and I live stream once a week if you want to say hello between uploads. This video is by far a record long for me, so thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much to my patrons who give me energy to keep making this content even in the slow months. I appreciate each and every one of y'all so much. I've got a whole stack of games I'd love to cover, some of them normie games and some of them niche, and I'm not sure which is coming next, so stay tuned and I'll probably surprise us both. Until then, peace out, Girl Scout.